Hi, I'm Eli Glasner. Welcome to the Directors Guild of Canada Red Carpet Roundtables. Join us as we sit down with 4 exceptional voices in documentary, miniseries, and feature film. Danielle Grou, Cardinal; Tiffany Hsiung, The Apology; J.J. Johnson, Odd Squad, The Movie; Nathan Morlando, Mean Dreams. I want to start by kind of getting a sense of what brought all of you into this. What was that moment where you decided that directing, that's what there's so many other occupations, jobs, even roles on a TV or film set that you could do that would be less taxing, less responsibility, still creating something. So it's a lot to take on.
I've always loved movies. I've always gotten lost in it. And growing up, born and raised in Toronto, I never really felt, very connected with the characters, like from Saved by the Bell or like, Beverly Hills 90210. And I was always waiting for characters that I could feel like, I could feel I see myself in them.
Right.
And so instead of waiting, I think during high school, I slowly gotten more into media and then photography. And I thought I'd get into photography, and I realized I needed more of a platform to be able to share the stories and tell the stories so that the younger generation can also have more of a diverse, different types of takes and stories, especially growing up in Toronto. To have that, I think that was really important for me to create.
Were there some shows or films that kind of unlock something for you? Well, this is something I can do, or I can be like that.
You know what? It was Eat, Drink, Man, Woman by Ang Lee.
Really?
Yeah, it was a Taiwanese
Lovely.
film, and it just reminded me of my entire family. And I was like, I need more of this in my life. And this was something that I felt like can immerse so many different peoples from different age groups and cultural backgrounds as well to connect, and the whole story is just about family. So that really brought me into it, and I was like, I want to do this.
Well, I always wanted to tell stories. I thought I'd be a novelist for a while.
Really?
Yeah. So when I was 8, I wrote a novel.
8?
Yeah.
What was it about?
Oh
yeah, it's a screenplay. It's in production.
No, yeah. It's, Netflix is doing. No, yeah. But I burned it when I was 9. So then I wanted to tell stories. I thought I was typing away, and then I watched Jaws when I was 11, and I went, I want to do that thing. So
yeah. And
then I started watching movies and getting into it, and just I wanted to procure this sense of fantasy and transport people the way I felt transported by that film at 11.
Yeah.
Now I'm transported by other types of movies, but when I was 11, that was my thing.
I wish I had a better answer. I was hugely unpopular in high school.
Yeah.
And so in grade 12, it was the nominations for school president, and someone put my name in as a joke, knowing that there was no way that I would win.
Right.
And so I was going to the office to pull my name out, and that the person that did it came up, and they're like, you should pull out. There's no way you're going to win this. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm going to win this thing. And so me and my 2 friends made a video, and it was like a send-up of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And we got the one celebrity in Elmira, Ontario was Tino Monte, who was the host of Supermarket Sweep, which was like a game show set in a supermarket. And so we got him into it, and we played this video, and it's one of the best moments of my life because everyone reacted so positive. Like at the end, there was this massive cheer, and won in like a landslide. And I think through that, I just realized just how powerful media can be, and how it can, literally change people's minds and shift perspectives. And so in that moment, I realized I couldn't think of anything else that could have that kind of sway and importance.
It's interesting because you got that feedback. People are watching and they're reacting to something you made. But then you go and you make a film like Odd Squad, the movie. It's very comedic, very funny stuff. These kids, kind of sarcastic. There's all these beats, but you don't have the feedback of the audience as you're making it. How do you calibrate that?
Sure.
What's your sounding board?
Yeah, well, I would say my company's biggest advantage is that we work with kids in live action. So to me, the sounding board is our cast, because they're they're all the age that we're looking for. So I can tell, like, if they don't like the script, if they are not finding something funny, that it's not going to work for kids at home. So it's really, for me, every day it's about loosening the control and letting them know that I am desperate for their feedback. I mean, now they give a lot of feedback, right? Which is great. And like at some points, I'm like, you're just being mean. So it's like trying to separate that. But I just find, as a sounding board, there's no one better than having your actual audience there.
Yeah. I imagine all of you, like, you pay attention to the crew and just how people are reacting as you're filming, because those are kind of the tools available.
But also, I kind of, because now with the monitors and everything, I mean, I become the spectator. You know, I kind of forget that everything's going on.
You're just watching a show.
I'm kind of, easily get into watching, and I'm like, if I'm moved, or I tend to be moved, by the actors, I'm with them and I want them to succeed, and okay, that's a cool moment, and if I feel something, then that's it. I go, and then I ask around, was that okay, was that okay? And people give their feedback, but I become I lose myself really easily in the process.
I guess that's a good thing. Nathan, you've talked about involving the crew in a lot of decisions. It seems like you have a very kind of democratic set when you're working.
Yeah, well, the hiring process for me is very important, obviously, as it is for everybody. And the goal is to hire the smartest people you can find and who want to share in your vision. And so when I'm surrounded by really smart people, it's very important that they are the first audience. And that's what I'm constantly saying to my crews. You're the first audience. You watch a lot of cinema. You understand cinema very well, and then you're going to be the audience in the future, so why not just give me feedback now? And you can feel it. I mean, everyone's busy doing their thing, but the crew gives off an energy. And you can tell by the way they're working and the passion they have for the material and on the day, and you can feel the energy. And if you create a democratic environment, then they feel very comfortable to participate. And so there have been instances where, in the moment, I had to literally just change a scene because we had some challenge with a structure, and I had to move everything around and flip the scene around. And an actor was approaching, and I wanted to be prepared. And so I just put the available crew that weren't working, I just put them in front, and I played out 2 different scenes for them, and I asked them for their feedback. What did they like best? And it's really great. You can trust your team. And that's a really nice feeling to have.
Yeah, I did that last night. The exact same thing. Yeah, when I was shooting a scene, we couldn't figure it out, and there was a line of dialogue in or out, and so I blocked it both ways and had the whole crew watch it. And what do you guys think? And they said, shoot both. So, so I shot both, and we'll figure it out. But then after we shot it, when you put it up with the camera and the lighting, and then I went around, what do you think? And some people liked one version, some people liked the other version. So then you have to put it into the whole, because it's a piece, right? It's a piece of the puzzle, and once it can be this version or that version depending on what's coming before or after, So we'll see, but it's cool to open it up that way,
Yeah, I feel that way too about creating a space with like people that I think it's quite similar with documentaries as well, but maybe I'm too idealistic, but not only do I want the smartest and the most intelligent people to be on set, but also the most passionate, the ones that are gonna rough it out and not look at it like the timesheet and be like, all right, we gotta clock out. It's
and
I'm
push
overdue
you, right?
now, and push me
back and give
exactly.
You honest feedback.
And while we're filming The Apology, I swear it took a village to make that film possible in different countries, and I was very blessed to actually be able to have everyone that came on that project to feel passionate for that story, to want to give it their all. And so in many ways, I'm being taught by the people around me as well. So I'm also learning from them, and we're learning from each other, and we're solving problems together.
And it's a beautiful experience.
Exactly. Right? And Rob Reiner said this during his talk at TIFF one time. He said, the final product of the film is actually not for you. The process is for you and your crew, so make sure that environment is one that people remembers and really enjoys, So screaming your head off and throwing things at people isn't really the experience you want to live by with the people around you. Like, that's your life. It's the process.
But what have you learned about yourself after going through an experience like that, in terms of relating to other people and still protecting your vision?
Patience. It's so weird with documentary. It's like time is your enemy, but time is also your so necessary and your best friend in terms of the type of material and the vibe that you create around like the people that you're filming, as well as your crew. Like everything impacts it. You know, you can't be 100% unobtrusive. So I just learned so much about patience and slightly being a little bit zen about it. Being like, you can't force this, you can't rush this, but you know, I know that we're on a time crunch, and we would fly. Maybe my producers don't want to hear this, but like, we would fly, you know, 14 hours to maybe just have that 2-minute moment, you know. But that was needed, and we needed to take that time to be there in order to get that 2-minute moment in that film that made everything happen.
And you anticipated that, because the interesting thing is, and the other stories around this table, incredibly beautiful cinematic projects, but you don't always know what you're going to get. So I wonder if you kind of have hopes and dreams every day. I mean, how do you kind of start each day with that shopping list when it's life, right? You're following this grandmother around and you don't know what's going to occur.
I was just telling JJ, I was like, you know, I feel like fiction, there's so many, like, it's like feeling like you're in a kid in a candy store where you have these options and you could create these magical moments and scenes, and I pray for that. Like every morning, I'm just like, oh, I hope everyone is feeling good with the camera and feeling like, I hope that the sky and the light hits at that moment, but at the same time, I just kind of let it all go once you're immersed in that moment. I get lost in it, and I think, well, the process of making the apology, I forgot in many ways of being a director and just being, having that privilege to be welcomed into this family's life, and I got immersed in that. And
I thought that was very striking in your film, how intimate it was. It was so extraordinarily intimate. You know, there was a very strong aesthetic, and yet so intimate, and that was a really extraordinary accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, it needed to take that, you know, 5-6 years of being able to have that relationship with the family to capture that. And I think my background in photography always lent its hand, and I was shooting most of it, so in many ways it was great to be able to share with, you know, your characters like what you're shooting and have them be part of that as well. And yeah, it's a process that I was just saying to you that how I wanted to transition one day into fiction. And,
absolutely.
And I feel like documentary has taught me so much about capturing that real raw emotion. And I will feel very lucky to be able to have a set of people and a crew and actors and to be able to be like, can you do this for me? This would be amazing.
You can actually,
yeah, to be
try
able
it
to
this
say that and
way.
not feel awkward about it, like
Right.
that's gonna be amazing.
But I like what we were talking about, because I started in reality TV, and I
really?
think that ability to get a story, especially as elements are falling apart, because in documentary reality, you're watching something unfurl in front of you and you're trying to direct it, but you have to be adaptable. And I think that's one of the things that saved me in now a TV and moving into longer form, is to be able to adapt on the fly and to not be so stuck in how you saw it, but to be malleable enough that when it's not perfect, it's like it's a slow, steady, you know, stabbing of losing things, but still winning the battle.
But oddly, in fiction, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You kind of place it and then, but you have to adapt to, well, the weather's not good.
Totally, yeah.
This actress just had an abortion last night, or you know, people feel the way they feel, and you have to adapt. And sometimes it's
But
written,
even in
and
Cardinal, when the tone is so specific
Yeah.
and you have this architecture of the storytelling, you know where you're going, you still are able to give yourself enough space.
you have to, I think, to adapt to whatever the actor is thinking or feeling that day, or maybe they have another idea about the scene. And sometimes you have to try to accommodate that if it's good, you know. And you know, you could come to a set and go, this was cool, and when we visited, or. But then you kind of go, this would be really awesome here. And you're like, you're going over there because something's happening with the landscape or whatever. And all of a sudden start, you know, we call it on Cardinal as stumbling into greatness. You know, you're like, I hadn't thought of that, but look at this window, look at what's going on here. We get through the window, you know.
Yeah.
It's really, you have to adapt.
If the actor's being authentic, and if you're creating authentic conditions, no one knows what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And you want to create those conditions to allow that to happen, right? What others call the magic on set. And so when I was watching your film, I thought, like, I can't wait to actually see if you had the interest to work in fiction, because you really created such intimacy that any actor will trust you. Like, absolutely. Because those are the conditions you need to create in this fictional environment, is trust.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to create a kind of like a sandbox, a large one that anybody could play with, and anybody can feel free to express themselves in their own way.
Well, how do you establish that trust? Like for your film, when a big star like Bill Paxton comes in, and I imagine, you know, part of us are still fans, and you know, you see these people that you recognize from roles, and you're like, oh, right? So how do you build that bridge so you can speak to him as a collaborator?
It's interesting, the experience I've had with the more experienced actors is the first day is always a very challenging day. The actor, you know, you have your conversations, like for them to sign on, you've had your conversations with them, so they've trusted you to a certain extent to sign on the project and make the effort to travel and appear on the day. And then the first day is always about figuring out what everyone is like.
It's like two dogs circling each
yeah,
other, right?
it really is, and it's really like, for me, the metaphor of filmmaking is kind of like it's a very soldierly experience where everyone's in it for the right reasons, and everyone's protecting everybody. And so everyone, like with actors, I think they challenge. The director has to challenge the actor, and the actor has to challenge the director, and you learn each other's truth. And if the actor senses that you are there for the truth, and I think experienced actors will try certain things to see if you're really watching, and they're testing to see. They might even do something like that isn't fantastic, and if you say, "Great, okay, let's move on," because I've heard this is what some people do too, because they're also afraid to challenge, because if you have a star on set, the default position might be like, oh, well, they're the star, so it's good enough. They're testing you. How accurate are you watching? Because you have to be their eyes, because if you want them to max out on their performance, they have to fall. They have to let go. Each time is a letting go, and you have to be there
To catch them.
So that's really what's really beautiful about the experience. And so when the actor learns that, generally on the first day, because you can learn it like in a few takes if you're watching, and then when the falling starts to happen, it's amazing, because then you don't know what's going to happen, and that's beautiful.
Sounds like a respect issue,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like
That's exactly what it
well,
is.
trust. We're
It's
talking about
trust.
trust.
It's trust.
Right? On Cardinal, do you have like a somber set? I mean, the
No.
mood
It's
feels
pretty
so
funny.
oppressive.
No.
So do you?
No, and I do a lot of oppressive projects for some reason, but it's always light. We always trying to, because you want to keep. It's not just the actors. We talk a lot about the actors, but the whole crew has to feel like they're part of it, and they're respected, and they have time to put their mic and laid a track or whatever it is. They have to know that you're going to respect the time it takes for everybody to do their job. Because sometimes you have to ask them to push. Now I need you guys to go fast, and if you've respected them for like weeks and weeks and weeks, they're going to respect you back. It's a very
The thing we always say, it speaks to your process, is that it's not just what we get, it's how we get it.
Yeah.
And that it's kind of 50% of the battle. We're lucky that we've had a similar crew with a few little changes for now 11 years.
Wow.
And I would not be able to get what we get without that shorthand, without that occasionally stepping on someone's toe, but they know that you're going to get them the next moment, because you're trying to make something really ambitious.
Yeah, you have to work with people that still are curious.
Totally, yeah.
Right.
That are
And
like-
ambitious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but curious about let's try it. And, let's
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Let's go with it. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but maybe. And to have that kind of thirst for new
Exactly.
experience. Yeah.
I agree with the war metaphor, because there's also, at the start, you look around and you're like, we're not all going to make it out of this. There's horrible moments where we were shooting at the bottom of Niagara Falls. There's like 500 tourists, and I need like 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to like sum it up what I wanted, other than to say to our poor locations person, like, they shall not pass.
Yeah.
And he was just like, and I watched him go, and he held them off for like 15 minutes. But afterward, I could see he was shell-shocked because he just had people like pushing and driving to get past him. But it's those moments that also, I think, pull you all together, and it becomes war stories.
Yeah,
and you become
yeah,
this little
totally,
platoon.
totally.
And when you feel that you've got people that are in the trenches with you, then you've got that support and feeling. That you
And
can do
also,
anything.
as a director, you have to, if you want your crew to be curious, and you have to be that way, the first person to be that way, you know,
Right.
and you kind of set the tone with your
lead.
mood. You know, sometimes if I'm feeling angry at something or whatever, I literally do this. I go in the mirror, good mood, good mood, good mood, and I walk on the set.
Oh yeah, does that?
Just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've found that if you walk on set and you're pissed off about something,
You're bringing that energy to everyone else. Yeah.
to the act. Everybody feels it
Yeah,
right away,
exactly.
and the work goes down, the quality. Everybody
Yeah.
kind of feels it, you know. It's a really, it's empathetic
Yeah.
work environment.
But JJ, in terms of challenges, so you're dealing with special effects,
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
sometimes animals. Like
A lot, yeah.
you've got it all
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Given all those challenges, like we talked about, kind of establishing trust, and the kids in the Odd Squad, like very funny,
Yeah.
a lot of personality. A lot of that comes from the writing, but how far can you push them? I think sometimes there's that fear that, you know, they're kids and we're going to kind of baby around them.
No,
but
no,
'cause it
they're-
seems like they're very
full-fledged adults. Yeah, yeah.
sophisticated.
Yeah, no, they're smart. I mean, they're brilliant. I feel like what we are trying to do, it's like a wonderful nightmare because there's so many things in flux, and animals and horses, and like for us, we have unicorns and things, you know, crazy creatures all over the place. But the thing that I love about working with kids that I would find it hard to move out of is that kids are actively looking to try to maximize their fun in every moment
Right,
of their
right.
life. And I think it's something that as adults we lose. And so when you're close to that and you're watching them be able to do a really emotional scene and snap out of it and be like playful the moment afterwards, or playing with the puppet, whatever it's going to be, it's such a lesson to us and our crew. And so I really just try to take my lead from them. I mean, it goes into everything, every single process, like even in rehearsals. It's about, I'm so curious about seeing how they first interpreted the piece. Because invariably, it's in a way that I would never have thought of, and it's 10 times better and 10 times more funny, or it's completely horrible. Like it's like there's no in between there. But getting their first take and seeing how they've kind of internalized it themselves, that kind of innocence brought to the project to me is what makes our sets as fun as they are and as chaotic. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of like dressing rooms and separating. They're in it. They're with the crew. They're usually sometimes helping operate cameras. And now what's cool, because we've been doing this for so long, is they want to be directors, and they're already writing scripts. Like they're so enmeshed in the process.
How old
that
are
they're?
these?
I mean, we have a 13-year-old writer. Anne from Androids is going to be directing on Dino Dana. Like it's so exciting to watch them become masters in their craft, and we have kids that are winning daytime Emmy Awards for their work, and then watch them spread out and be so excited about the process because it was fun for them. So for me, at the end of the day, I love when our kids are crying because they don't want to leave. You know what I mean? That it was such an impactful process,
awesome.
Which is hard because I'm like, yes, cry for this. You know what I mean? But it's because they've enjoyed themselves so much. You know what I mean? So yeah,
But
it's a great joy.
I want to come on your set.
You should. No, it's
Sounds
fun.
like a fun,
Yeah.
but it's a set, if it's run well, and it becomes that,
Yeah.
where you reconnect with what it was like to be a kid, really, because when you're lost in creativity, which happens, when you don't think about all the stuff exterior and you're focusing on what you're doing, you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually are, you're like creating this thing. They first called it plays, and that's what we're filming, essentially. So you have a sense of that, You keep, I find I keep reminding people on crews that, you don't freak out. We're like having fun.
Yeah.
Look at this stuff. We have cameras, we have actors, we're telling a story. And they're like, you're right. And it calms everybody down, and let's have fun,
I think if we made a few mistakes on this project, but one of the biggest ones was that because it was feature length, we decided to treat it differently than how we approached all of our TV shows. So
Because it became serious?
Exactly, and we were all so excited, and I think I had romanticized what it was to make a movie. And so we were doing
the director's chair.
but we're doing CG elements. And before, we would arrive and kind of figure it out, but we'd figure it out in the moment. And in this one, because the sequences were a little more daunting, we decided to pre-visualize and storyboard. And they mount them all up, and we got there, and immediately the drone broke down, and things are crashing, and wind machines are blowing children almost off cliff sides. Like it was like, and I watched this. Like I immediately was like, we're not doing any of that. We're moving on to this. But I could see everyone, all that effort and time and work that went into pre-planning this thing was lost immediately, and we within a day or two reverted back to our TV style, which was a little bit more rolling with the punches, maximizing it, still going huge, but being way more adaptive and not thinking that we had somehow greater control because this was a longer piece of work.
It feels like in Canada these days that both in TV and film, our storytelling is getting so much more ambitious and cinematic and traveling around the world. And yet, how do you do that while still, are the budgetary pressures on all of you, have they gotten any easier? Is it still a grind to reach those goals while you're trying to finish that episode, trying to deliver?
Always. I mean, the budget is never enough.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially.
You hear that?
But it's true. It's always a pressure of time because time is money. And you have 10 minutes at the end of the day to finish your scene, and you're like going like this, but you don't want to rush it. So maybe it's an emotional scene or whatever. But it's always pressure. Always money.
Yeah, and Mean Dreams was actually a small budget film, but it premiered at Cannes.
But it looks like a $50 million project.
Exactly, and that's the crew.
Yeah.
Right, that was having an incredible cinematographer, Steve Cousins, who worked with Cardinal, and just again hiring the most talented people who are passionate about the vision, and then they can create together something that looks of much greater monetary value, and you can compare it to, say, Hollywood films that might cost 80, and still these smaller films may have even a stronger aesthetic because the team is behind it differently. So we definitely always need more financing. Of course, you always want more time. But at the same time, if you have an incredible team, you can make magic happen.
And out of those challenges come creative solutions.
Always. And I hesitate to say this out loud because producers might be listening, but there's always a creative way out of anything. You just have to kind of stop and figure it out. And often, it's better. The solution you might come up with the crew becomes better than what was there.
I just feel, I hope that we're entering into a phase where it's no excuses. You know what I mean? There's great work being generated around the world with far less resources than we have. And even if we all had a little bit more, we'd still be saying, oh, we still don't have enough money because our jobs are to dream bigger and bigger and bigger and push it. And that we need to be competitive. We need to be competitive on a global scale. So how do you do that? How do you use landscapes and performers and every trick you have to be able to compete with things that are coming out of the U.S., for us principally. And I think we're showing that we can do it. And I would say to also not be afraid to extend that ability to imagine into all categories. Because I know, for us, we were doing a lot of stunt sequences. And I find with stunts and animals sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is to make it the most complicated thing imaginable. For this sequence, it was like the kids were forming a pyramid. So it was like 4 levels high with 20 kids. And the quote came in to rig it all. And it was something ridiculous. It was like $400,000 because each thing was individually rigged, and there was going to be like 22 cranes. I'm like, this is insane. And we also needed it to like move in and move out so we could get like a clean plate shot. And in the end, just with some discussion, we're like, let's really figure out what we're talking about here. And in the end, we just built this grid on the back of a truck that we could pull in. It was fully weighted, fully certified. We have engineers that like did it. The kids walked up, latched themselves in. It was all painted green, and it was done like by the end of the day. We still obviously had stunt coordinators and stuff, but at the end of the day, I think it cost us like $10,000 versus something
There's
crazy.
always creative. I had a thing where we had to do an explosion. It's written in the script: car explodes. A woman goes into the car explodes, and you're like, okay, we got to find a car. We got to make it explode. All these effects, and I said, well, wait a minute. let's do it. We'll have the real car and put a fireball right in front, and I'll do it in the reflection of the window with the guy watching the thing, and that's it. It costs the fireball,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's way better to do, more poetic, more about the character as opposed to the effect, you know, all that stuff. So
How much do you ever go off script and want the characters, your actors, to not improv per se, but take it to another level where maybe the script didn't call for it, but it can elevate? Like, how much freedom do you give your
depends on
actors?
if you're working on a feature, then a lot of that happens. If you're
Okay.
working for TV for, I won't say who, or networks, they have an approval process, and
Okay.
then they hate you to go off script. You have to have a good reason. Well, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Once they sign on to the script, that's like
Yeah,
that's the
it's
vibe.
basically you gotta.
I think providing you deliver that, but you could do options. And
You
things
could
like
do
that.
options.
Yeah.
You
As long
could
as you
do,
gave them
yeah,
the baseline
and
of what they want. Yeah.
you could do that. You know, in Quebec it's easier to, but here I find they're more. You know, and the crews also are used to. I'm sorry, the crews are used to going off the script.
Right.
Like we did these last 4 days, there was a lot of eventing going on. I mean, the writer kind of came up with a lot of stuff on the fly, not crazy stuff like a helicopter shot, but just kind of moody stuff. And you could find the crew going, "Oh, we're not in our comfort zone now.
Yeah.
This wasn't in the script." And I'm like, "Yeah, but is it cool? Yeah. So let's try it." And you bring them along with you for the ride.
My favorite things are just to do with kids in particular is because I always want them to be on their toes, and they
Right.
can get bored if you've done several takes. Is I always leave the camera rolling at the end of a scene, and they know that they have to improv something because the camera's rolling. So they're always, and I
Oh,
can see them
interesting.
like working out what it's going to be because the other rule is that it can't be the same thing. And we've gotten so many buttons of scenes
Yeah.
by something brilliant that they've said, but I can feel them that they're processing throughout the scene as well, and then there's something great, and they're thinking about a little bit what their character's going to do later. So it's the best to kind of have a little bit of time to give it that free flow,
Right.
even if you're not going to use it. It's what it's causing them to do in the
Right.
And
moment.
a lot of actors like to improvise also and like to change it up, and some don't. So you
Right.
got to figure out sometimes who's able to do that, who's not comfortable with that, and kind of tone it down for one and put it up for.
Now, Nathan, you had some explosive scenes in Mean Dreams. I mean, it almost makes me think of something akin to like a Michael Bay action scene where you're only going to shoot this once with 8 cameras just because you don't want to have to go through that again for you or your actors. So do you do multiple takes? Is there kind of a looseness there, or how do you approach it?
We didn't have many takes,
Yeah.
so we really planned. Like there was a very complicated chase scene through a field, chasing 2 15-year-olds, and it's also a very dangerous chase scene. So that had to be planned out, and we were always racing against light.
Yeah.
When you're working with underage actors, you've got reduced days. So for instance, on Mean Dreams, it was a 25-day schedule, but really it was like we lost a week because of working with underage kids. So you're working super fast. But that, again, if you're not intimidated by the constraint and you embrace it, then the energy is like everyone knows they get like 4 takes if you're sitting around like this. If we're doing a chase scene, we've got maybe you've got 2, 3 takes, and so that has to be very planned, and you just go for it. And a lot of it's just, again, it's the team. The good fortune of having everyone. No one's being lazy. Everyone's focused, and if you've got a really focused team, you can accomplish a lot in a few takes.
Yeah, and when everyone's committed, they kind of bring it,
Yeah.
and they easily. So.
Now, in this country where it can be tough to punch through that media bubble, I'm part of the bubble. I'll apologize on behalf of the media bubble. And in terms of just TV ratings or box office or just coverage, maybe you're not always seeing what you want. So I'm wondering, how do you measure your success when you've done these projects that you're proud of and then gets out there in the wild? What do you look for?
I look at the project. I don't look at reviews ever. I don't anything. I don't even, I do interviews, but I don't watch them. It's like that's a different part of the work. It's a necessary part, and I enjoy doing all this interviews, but for me, it's being at home and watching it with friends, and especially the people you've worked with.
Yeah.
And you watch it, and if people like the project, then that's what I look for. I mean, that's it.
I'm slightly addicted, or have been for the past year and a half now, traveling with the film. And I was just telling JJ that I need to like just calm down on that. But it is this feeling that like sharing the film with an audience and seeing their reaction. I'm kind of like the creeper in the theater that like kind of hides in there and just like watches people, because it makes me feel like I want to know what they're feeling. I want to know how they're interacting with these grandmothers, and to see their reaction and then to have a discussion with them afterwards. For me, it's been a bit addictive to hear people, the way that they translate the film into their own life and how personal it gets for them. And they're from like, you know, different cultural backgrounds, different age demographic, and they're able to relate to them. I'm a little bit of a audience junkie now. Like I want to be there, but at the same time, you can't be at every screening.
I guess you're getting your fix too now, because you went from TV to there was a theatrical
Oh,
version.
I mean, it's amazing. But I would say, for me, it's, I agree that the piece means something to myself. But I also realize that, you know, we're in a competitive marketplace where I need that project to beget our next project. And so I need to make sure that it is hitting in different areas, because I'm also producing what we make. And I need to say to when we are asking for a little more money on the next and a little more money on the next, that I can point to something and say, this show has sold into 80 countries, or we got this back. I look at the lifetime of the company that I'm a partner in, Sinking Ship, and we started with, you know, live action interstitial programming, 6 minutes. And then from there have grown to 12 years later doing features. And I think that's entirely because it's taking a step back and putting on a little bit of the money hat and being like, okay, what do I need this thing to do to prove to that person that said no to me on this one that now we can do it, and that if you gave us a little more money, now we can do this. So it's a double-edged sword for me, because I agree. Like there's the familial experience of making it that is almost impenetrable, and I love that. You know, like that experience with the kids and the crew and all of that. And then there's I need this thing.
You're creating benchmarks for yourself.
But when you're making it, I find that if you're shooting truth and it's truthful and you know that people are going to identify with it, I kind of have the confidence that it's going to work. You know, people are going to watch for some reason. You know, if you're really being honest on set and kind of giving it your all and getting the performances, people are going to respond. I kind of always think
that will break through the media bubble.
Yeah.
To bring it back to, that's all we can do. That's what we have control over, is the truth. And that's our job. So if we find the truth and cultivate it, then it's going to break. It'll break bubbles out there.
I think that's a good place to end. We talked about truth, soldiering on, and taking risks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.